All right, everyone. Nick from Resonix here with Matthew Kim, one of my former employees, very talented installer, fabricator, tuner as well. Got his start over at Musicar Northwest, ended up making his way out east, working for me for a few years, really honing in his skills over those years, and now is one of the fabricators, installers, and the tuner over at AI Design in Westchester, New York. If you're not familiar with them, you should definitely check out their work. And it kind of speaks for itself what they're really doing over there. So anyways, Matt, I know you are a very talented tuner yourself. I know you have, dove headfirst into a lot of the, measurement systems, methods, tuning techniques over the years. A lot of it just, right under my nose, essentially. I watched pretty much most of it firsthand. And I figured you would be perfect to really have a discussion with to help a lot of people on this topic and maybe shed some light on various tuning things, various mic setups and measurement methods. So I don't know if you want to add anything else about who you are or what you do, but or we could just jump right into it.
Yeah, I'm just aside from my career in audio, I started as a hobbyist, so I still love audio for what it is, and I still pursue that next level regardless of what I'm doing professionally. I'm always interested in how I can make things better for my audio system and just
Let me actually, I think I could add something good to there. For context for everyone, how I met Matt was on one of the forums online, and he made a post saying, I don't want to go to medical school. I want to install car audio. And I think do you not remember that?
I remember clearly.
Yeah. And so there's definitely a passion there. Anyways, like we said, you've had your hands on a lot of different projects. You've done a lot of different things over the years. We've done a lot of stuff together as well. Mm-hmm. We've learned a lot of things together. So I feel like it's perfect to have you on here as the first guest, I guess we could say, out of this little series that I'm doing. So this series here is about, like I said, various microphone measurement systems, their pros, their cons, your experiences with them, your, interests in various ones and things you want to try, stuff like that. And, just kind of start it off with a few questions and then maybe open it up into a discussion of whatever you'd really like to talk about. Sound good?
Yeah.
All right.
Let's go.
So question number one, I know you started off with a pretty standard setup when you started tuning initially, using a single USB microphone with Room EQ Wizard, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah.
All right. So when did you start with single mic measurements, and what was the setup like?
So I think I started around 2018. That's pretty much when I got into car audio. I got my first DSP, which was a Rockford DSR1.
Wait, what?
Yeah, it was
really
it was not good.
I didn't even know it was out when you first got into it. Interesting.
It just came out. I came across it online, and I just got it because I thought I needed it. And I had my first system, which was still a 3-way active system, and I started using Room EQ Wizard and a Dayton USB mic, and just followed the guides that I saw on DIY mobile audio. The standard match to a target curve, match levels, make sure things are in phase, and then that's all I did. And Simple. I thought it sounded good.
Yeah. Okay.
I just let it play, and I thought it sounded great. And that's kind of how I tuned for, I'd say, a year or two.
Okay.
Before I started learning a little more.
Okay, so let's take note of that. At the time, you thought it was great, right?
Oh, yeah.
All right, cool.
I thought I knew what I was doing. I thought I got the magic formula, but, it's it,
All
it
right.
was a start.
Well, we'll come back to that. So next question. I know you now, like I said, you moved over to AI design. You guys have a very impressive tuning cart that's kitted out with the JL Max system. I know you have your own measurement hardware. So my next question is, when did you start with multi-mic measurements, and what was the setup like?
Yeah, so multi-mic, I actually came across it in a different way than most. Basically, during COVID, I was, we all had time. So I was scrolling around on YouTube looking at car audio content, but I actually found a pro audio channel that used multi-mic arrays to, optimize their concert venues. And I just kind of watched the videos and followed what they were doing. And I thought, okay, I've heard of other people doing this in car audio. Why don't I try it myself? So I pretty much bought everything I needed, my USB interface, multiple microphones, and I actually got Systune, which is a measurement software that's similar to Smaart,
Yeah.
but just has some differences. Yeah, I just started experimenting, doing transfer function, impulse response, phase measurements, and it was quite a steep learning curve because I was just learning it off a YouTube video. But after about a month, I got the hang of it, and I felt pretty confident in my tuning ability with that measurement system compared to the single mic on Room EQ.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
so I was.
that was around COVID. Was that before you moved to New York?
Yes, it was right before New York.
Okay. And then you came to my shop. I actually had, I think, the same exact setup that you were using. I was using a handmade array with the same interface, I think, with using Systune as well. So where did you go? What was your next setup like?
Let me think. I think that the next thing I did is I fabricated a custom mic holder that's pretty adjustable, so you could change the positioning and height and depth of the mics. I used 7 microphones.
Okay.
And I just played around with that and how the positioning changed my measurement and what I heard, and that was sort of the next step, just the mic stand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was there any other progression as far as, like, I'm not talking like small steps. I'm talking like, let's picture like broad strokes here. After that, was there like a next step in like how you went about tuning as far as your measurement method? Because I know, didn't you get an Earthworks mic when you were still at Vanguard, or was that even before?
No, I didn't get an Earthworks. I was thinking about that.
Okay.
I did get into Dirac tuning for a short while.
Okay.
Just to see what that was about. That still uses one mic but multiple measurement positions.
Yeah.
So that was a good experience. Definitely learned some stuff there. But I think that honestly, I went back to single mic with a moving mic.
Moving like mic, like spatial averages with you sitting in the car?
Yes.
When was that? That was probably before you went to AI design, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then you made the switch over, and now you're using, I think, a combination of various different things. Tell us where you're at now.
Yeah, so now I use, like you said, I use a combination. I use single mic, moving mic to do frequency response, because I've found in my experience that it tracks most accurately to what you hear once you're done.
Mm-hmm.
Then for timing or delay, I will start with the impulse response in the max. I'll start with that. But if I see something that's pretty unusual, like for example, I've seen, let's say a tweeter and a mid-range are pretty close together in a car, but the measurement software is telling me they're like over a millisecond apart in delay, obviously that can't be right.
Yeah.
So if I see things like that, then I will go in myself, use a tape measure, and verify by ear.
Okay. You know, it's funny. I've actually seen I've seen similar results before. Now that you mention that, where it's like, yeah, these two speakers are really close to each other, but it's like, that doesn't really add up.
Right. Yeah.
And it's, you know, if it was between like, you know, low frequency drivers, I'd kind of understand, but you know, between mid and tweeter, that's always like a eyebrow raiser. Okay. So next question. Looking back now, were these steps that you made what you thought they were in the initial moment?
I think they were critical in learning, but they weren't what I thought they were in terms of actual performance benefits.
Okay. Yeah, you mentioned that before when you when I said let's take note of that, when you're like, I figured out the secret formula.
Yeah. So my first method with RU and USB mic, I just blindly relied on it. I just forced it to a target curve and let it rip. I mean, that's how you start, but it's not really using the measurement to inform you. Let's say you have problems in your install, reflections. Nowadays, I would see that on the RTA and be like, oh, okay, I have a problem there that I need to fix before I even worry about tuning it.
Yeah. So what's your final, just to like recap, what's your 2-day, like what is your measurement / tuning method look like? So it seems like you said you started with, you know, you start with single moving mic with you sitting in the vehicle, measuring with Room EQ Wizard, doing spatial averages around your head, and then you use max for timing and phase?
I'll use max so when I use max for cars that I'm tuning at work, I will do frequency response and delay and phase all in one.
Okay.
Just for the convenience.
Okay.
I do think the max is a pretty convenient system all in one. It helps me get to a baseline in a reasonable amount of time. Then I'll always go in and verify everything that I've changed or made changes to.
Okay.
In my personal car, though, which is a little bit different, I'm a little more, what would you say?
Anal.
Yeah. I'm a little more careful about my personal car. I go slower. I really dial things in to my liking. But frequency response first. Make sure my acoustical crossovers, everything like that is good. Then I verify timing by ear after I do impulse response. I found that was a huge stepping stone as well. Yeah. Just making sure that what you're hearing is proper instead of just relying on the measurement. And then if I need to, so let's say I'm doing mid-bass to sub, if there's an issue in summation at the crossover and I can't seem to get it right or something seems off, then I will pull out a loopback audio interface and look at the phase measurement. But if everything is summing perfectly 6 dB across the board, then it's honestly a waste of time to get the phase measurement out and run cables and set up mics and, you know, so it's just a combo of what's needed.
Okay. All right. I like that insight. All right. So moving on to another question. So you have, experience with various forms of multi-mic measurements. What have you found works well with them, and what have you found that consistently doesn't work well with them?
So one thing that is beneficial about multi-mic is really the ease of averaging. So you sit outside of the car, you allow the USB interface to average all your measurements, and you can make live changes on your DSP. Just looking at the graph, it's pretty simple. You don't have to go back and forth. That's probably the most beneficial thing, is that convenience. However, one thing that I find is problematic about the Multimic is if you don't put the mics in the exact same spot as before, the measurement changes quite drastically.
Okay.
That's actually happened to me. I tuned a car, finished the tune, and closed up for the day. Then the following morning, I went back just to make some final changes on the RTA, and I must have not have put the stand in the exact spot. Maybe I was off for an inch, 2, 3 inches, and I saw peaks and dips. Mostly the measurement was mostly right on cue with the target curve, but I saw peaks and dips that I absolutely didn't see the day before. I think I attribute that to positioning.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, single mic spatial average measurements. What have you found works well with them, and what have you found that consistently doesn't work well with them?
So what works well would definitely be how it correlates to what you hear. Let's say, let's say you see a peak on your RTA doing moving mic. If you get in the car and listen at that frequency, you can hear that it's louder. It's pretty clear. Also, if you EQ to a target curve based on the information you get from the moving mic, when you get in the car and listen, there are not as many changes that you need to make by ear. That's been my experience. Not to say that the Multimic is bad in any way. It's not terrible. It's just you need to make a little bit more changes, in my experience.
Okay. Anything else? Anything that consistently maybe doesn't work well with single mic? And let's clarify. Single mic spatial averages with you sitting in the car, not being a jerk off and sticking it in the headrest.
Yes, that method I've tried before, and I scrapped it within 10 minutes. It did not work.
Yeah, I think we tried that one together, and we ended up dropping a brand over it.
It was not good.
Do you remember that day?
I do.
Oh my God. In Oliver's Tesla, I think it was.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyways, anything that consistently doesn't work well with single mic spatial averages. What do you think? It's a tough question.
It is. I mean, it's not something that doesn't work well. It's just something that's inherent in the measurement method, is looking at summation between a mid-range and tweeter using the moving mic method. You'll never get that 6 dB, even if it's perfectly in phase.
Yep.
Because the mic is moving at such distances that things are going out of phase and in phase.
Yep.
And averaging out. So I mean, that's probably the worst thing about it. But
let me ask you a question about that. So
yeah.
I actually usually attribute that to how many reflections there are, and throwing the measurement, like some of it in phase, some of it out of phase.
Right.
Do you see that with let's just say the JL Max, do you see that if it's perfectly timed that you get a perfect 6 dB summation through mid-range and tweeter, or still no?
I think that when I use a JL Max, I think that I do see a little bit more summation. Once I get them in time and I play them together, I do see about 4.5 dB sometimes.
Okay.
And I'm pretty happy with that. Like, okay, it looks like it's in phase.
Yeah. And then I think we both know, again, verifying that one by, I think I showed you how to do that kind of maybe last winter or something like that. And how it's like, hey, just a few kind of clicks really brings that,
Definitely.
in phase, and makes a huge difference.
Right.
So yeah, I kind of ignore that area on
Right.
measurement. I just make sure everything's like not fucked up, to put it simply, and then I do that by year.
Yeah.
All right. So, do you think, next question, or did you have anything else you wanted to add, or no?
I would. Oh, this is one of them. Definitely, when you're doing a moving mic measurement, and let's say you get a measurement of a mid bass, and you apply your EQ, and you measure it again, and it's not what you expected. That's when things get a little bit tougher with the moving mic.
So sorry, go on. I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah. So now you have to make changes again on top of that, and measure again and EQ again, and that becomes a little cumbersome switching back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
But that's obviously because of other issues that I won't mention.
I was gonna say, do you know what those are from? So in the last videos, it's always from something else in the car resonating with energy that the mic is able to pick up. And that's not going to change. It makes it annoying to do single mic measurements, because then you got to save it, you got to EQ it, you got to go back, take another one, save it, EQ it, go back. Exactly. But at the end of the day, that's an install problem, which is, so it's actually, I actually consider that, it's annoying, but I actually kind of it's like a pro and a con at the same time, if you think about it. It's a con because it's annoying and you have to take a measurement, save it, EQ it, take a measurement, save it, EQ it, and it's time consuming. But it also tells you what's going on. Hey, you have install problems. Here's where they lie.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, I don't know.
So if you were measuring that exact same speaker on the max, you would see the response on the graph. You would start making your changes to your target, and then that's it.
And you would never really know.
You would never really know. You just make your changes and move on.
Because you're doing your changes live while it's measuring.
Right. Yes.
Okay. Any other things you want to add here?
I think that's it for now.
All right. Next question. Any general common misconceptions in either direction?
Yes, I think one of them that I've seen more recently is the use of all-pass filters based on phase measurements.
What's your thoughts?
So basically, there's been more knowledge spreading online about using all-pass filters, measuring phase, and I think that's a good thing for everybody. But I think that also leads to an overuse of all-pass filters to correct problems that shouldn't have been corrected in the first place. So out of all the cars I've done, hundreds of tunes, I've run into situations where you get, let's say you play the left side, play the right side independently, and then you play them together and look at their summation, and you'll see a dip somewhere. Let's say 1,000 hertz, you see a dip. So you'd say, okay, why is that dip there? It must be out of phase. You do your phase measurements and you see, oh, okay, I can apply an all pass right at 1,000 and fix that on the RTA. Boom, you fix it on the RTA, get in the car, and now you have a split image at 1,000 hertz.
Yeah.
I've had that happen many, many times. So I've almost defaulted to not doing that. Obviously, I'll try it, A/B the difference by bypassing the all-pass filter, see if it centers up, see if there's more energy from using it. But I'd say maybe 5 times out of hundreds of tunes, it hasn't made a beneficial difference. And I just see people overusing all-pass filters to fix reflection problems or install problems that they should not be fixing it with.
I 100% agree. I was going to say pretty much the same thing, 99 times out of 100, if it's like above 300 hertz and it's a left to right issue, 99 times out of 100, you don't need to touch it.
Yeah.
But what I do is I'll apply the filters. If I'm, no matter which method I'm using to figure out that I need to do them, but I'll apply them. And then I will go in by ear with like band limited pink noise or sine waves or whatever it might be, and like verify on, off. Okay, like this needs to stay or this needs to go. And that usually, again, 99 times out of 100, it needs to go. And I still bother putting them on there just because it's like an OCD thing. It's like, all right, I got to at least see. I got to at least try.
Exactly. Yeah.
Takes 2 seconds, might as well. And you mentioned one thing that kind of stuck out to me. It's like, all right, listen to hear if there's more energy. One really weird thing that I've noticed, especially with like but like something I've been doing recently with mid-bass drivers, is in one of those scenarios where it's measuring that, okay, you need an all-pass filter here to match a phase wrap on the other side. What will happen is you'll actually get more volume when you apply that all-pass filter, but the image is split and diffuse and like it sounds out of phase, but if for some reason sounds like it has more volume. But if you turn it off, the volume does lower, but it's centered. It's a very interesting thing. And again, it comes down to how our brain is interpreting things versus how a microphone is interpreting things.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. Another example.
Yeah.
I've seen, so I was tuning a two-way system with the mid-bass down low in the door, so it was not quite optimal. And I had lots of nasty reflections around 1500 hertz.
Okay.
And looking at the phase graph on max, you could see probably 4 or 5 wraps that shouldn't be there.
Wow.
In an ideal situation. Only on the right side. On the left side, it was perfectly fine. So I thought, okay, there's 4 or 5 wraps. Why don't I just try to match all of them? And I was using a Helix DSP, which allows for multiple all-pass filters. So I just matched it all perfectly. Like,
just to see?
Down the line, yep. Got in the car. It was probably the worst sounding mid-range I've ever heard. I was like, yeah, that's not good.
Oh my God.
Once I bypassed all of them, it centered right back up. So even if the graph said there's 5 wraps here and no wraps here, it doesn't really make a difference. It's still centered up.
Huh. All right. I also want to add here, I actually 100% use the phase measurements and the all-pass filters to dial in phase through crossovers, and it's like perfect for that almost every time. But for some reason, that left to right is almost never a thing. Going down the line through crossovers, great. Going left to right, not great. Any other common misconceptions about any of it that you want to add?
I think the misconception about how being in the car affects your measurement when you're doing a moving mic. I think that's a good thing that you're in the car.
Okay. Any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, when you listen to the audio system, you're in the car. The sound waves are bouncing off your body, then getting to your ears. So it just makes sense that you should measure in the same way. Your body is an obstacle when you're listening and when you're measuring.
Yeah.
Just how
I agree 100%. I already know what some other people are going to argue. They're going to say, oh, the reflection off of your head with the microphone being near it is not good. Obviously, it's not good. I think it's just an inherent downside that you have to account for. And I think that's where, some of the oddities in some of the house curves that you see in the top frequency ranges come in.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. Anything else you want to add there, or should we move on to the next one?
Yeah, we can move on. All
right. Last question. What are some weaknesses in general of measurement, regardless of single or multi-mic or, arrays or spatial averages or any of it? What are some general weaknesses that you found?
One that definitely comes to mind is getting consistent spectral balance or tonal balance out of a measurement is, from car to car or system to system, is nearly impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Like, having the entire spectrum be perfect right after your measurement and EQ is very rare in what I see. And let's say like one car has this speaker and this DSP, these locations, and you tune to a target curve, do your phase delay, and another car has different speakers, different locations, and they measure the same on the RTA, but tonally they sound completely different, and up to multiple dBs in certain areas and frequencies. I think that the measurement gets you a baseline, but you really have to dial it in by ear.
Yeah. So just to maybe, for those that like might have not the fullest understanding on this, I think what you're saying is like you'll go in, tune two different cars with the same exact house curve, but they'll end up sounding different.
Yes.
Where do you find is that the most of the difference lies? Like, what is there a certain frequency range, or is there a certain characteristic that sticks out?
Yes, I would say that the upper mid-range, starting from around 2K and above to around 4K, in that critical region where your ears are pretty sensitive,
Mm-hmm.
that region can differ quite a bit between car to car. And then regions like in the lower mid-range stay pretty consistent, I would say, from around 300 to 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time it requires very little change, but I would say, yeah, that upper mid-range.
I fully agree with you on all of that.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I noticed, some of them, the bigger the car, the less bass it needs on the house curve. The smaller the car, the more bass it needs on the house curve.
Yeah.
That's, those are the things that I've noticed along with what you just said. Anything else? Any other weaknesses that you think you could point out with any measurement system that you've tried? Or all of them together?
I think that when you're using a mic array and you're not in the car while you're tuning, that is a disadvantage, especially if it's a system that you've never tuned before. Say it's a client's car or your friend's car. It's not your personal car, which left, right, up, and down. So if it's a new car that you're tuning fresh, you're not going to be able to hear if something's wrong with the install. There's a rattle, there's a resonance, something's like damaged and it's blown. You won't hear any of that in a multi-mic setting, whereas sitting in there, you'll catch it and fix it right away.
Yeah, I've noticed the same thing. Something that always stuck out to me is, again, like, you will be able to catch installation problems before you're done with an entire tune. And some people are going to say like, oh, well, you should verify all of that before you start your tuning anyways. But let's be real, how many people are actually verifying every little single thing before they stick a microphone in there? Usually they're not. Maybe some are. I don't know.
Sometimes you need to get in there and really start tuning to even discover a problem.
Yeah.
If it's a pretty minor problem.
Something else that popped in my head that sticks out along the way that I think is a really big benefit of tuning sitting in the car is you actually learn what different peaks and dips and frequency responses sound like. Obviously you measure, I don't know how many cars you've tuned. It's got to be in the hundreds by now. Same, I'm either in the upper hundreds or into the thousands at this point of how many tunes I've done. Most of them being in person. And I think something that was really helpful was, for most of these, I'm sitting in the car hearing, and I've essentially measured hundreds of different frequency responses and heard them at the same time. And I think that's pretty helpful because at the end of the day, I think we're both saying the same thing here. At the end of the day, you have to sort of dial things in by ear, and it kind of almost coaches you subconsciously a little bit.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, on that point, when you're not in the car, all you hear is this nebulous, like, background noise of pink noise. And then when you change the EQ, you just hear something get quieter or louder.
Yeah.
But when you're in the car, you can really hear what change you just made and how it correlates to what you hear instantly.
Yeah.
The moment you press it in the DSP, you get the change. Oh, that's what that does. Like cutting this by this dB does that, or applying all pass here does that, or flipping polarity does this, like, directly. Yeah. Whereas if you flip polarity when you're outside the car, you don't know how that sounds like.
Yeah.
You just see the graph change.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a benefit there. I agree.
All right. Anything that you want to add that we didn't even cover?
This is staying on topic with measurement systems, yes?
Yes and no. I don't know. Whatever you want.
Think about if I missed anything.
Why don't you tell us how you're going to measure those 3 subwoofers that are going in your dashboard?
Yes. So basically, I'm currently working on a front subwoofer array, if you will. So I'm doing a left sub, a center sub, and a right sub. Obviously, I will use phase measurements to make sure they're all aligned with my rear sub, which is I have a 15-inch acoustic elegance in IB. Phase measurements are great for the sub to mid bass to front sub to rear sub. I'll definitely use it there to get everything aligned. But yeah, it's all the same process. Yeah. Do your frequency response, measure phase, align them, ta-da.
Time it, and then get in by ear and start tearing it apart.
Totally.
All right. Anything else before I let you get out of here?
No, I think that's it.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your insights. And I will talk to you soon.
Cool. My pleasure.
Yep.
See ya.
Have a good one.